Operation Epic Fury lashes Iran's regime. Trump's record-long State of the Union speech. Bigger than Watergate. This is Dr. David E. Schein for Saving America's Week in Review with my own take on key stories from this past week focused on politics and business. My commentary this week arrives with war in Iran and a whole lot more to cover. Operation Epic Fury lashes the Iran regime. This will go down in history as a brilliant move that makes the world safer, or another failure by the United States in interventions into other countries. From my perspective, this should have been done by Jimmy Carter 47 years ago, when the Iranian revolutionaries, as they were called, invaded the American embassy and kept hostages for over 400 days. It took a non-politician in the White House to do it. After all, the Iranian terrorist regime routinely shouted, "Death to America, death to Israel." Too many Americans, including brave members of our armed forces, have died at the hands of Iran and its proxies. I applaud the initial salvo where advanced intelligence helped strike the regime at a unique time with so many of the terrorist leaders in just one place. I also like the before and after pictures of the entire building complex evaporated with powerful bombs. This is how wars are won. No partial victories like Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan. In fact, it is now Trump's challenge to make sure that Iran does not end up like the partial victories of failure from the before. I do hope there really is a pro-American contingent of Iranians ready to help lead Iran in the right direction. The same goes for Venezuela. Sadly, we already have American deaths in Israel, and interestingly, damage and injuries in other nearby Arab countries. Iran's remaining leaders have foolishly sealed themselves off from even nearby countries that might have given them some quarter. China and Russia are not in a position to help. All we know is that Trump said war is ahead of schedule. I hope all of Iran's missile capacity is destroyed soon. Trump has reported that the small Iranian Navy has been taken out already. With this type of progress, the war could switch to a situation where Iran can cause less harm to the surrounding American assets and other allies of the U.S. Hezbollah has jumped into the action and has been firing missiles at Israel, but I expect Israel and the U.S. to end that very soon. The terrorists should not be able to restock the missiles that they spent, with Iran's production capacity crushed, hopefully eliminated. While the Iranian people have been celebrating wherever they are, protests have arisen. Some American embassies have been the scene of protests from pro-current Iran regime folks. Sadly, there were 3 deaths and 14 others injured in a shooting rampage in nearby Austin, Texas. The perp appears to be an Iranian regime sympathizer, not too many of them, I can tell. Fortunately, he was neutralized by the local police. I extend my condolences to the injured and the families of all the victims. I know the FBI is hunting for sleeper cells as I speak. Most Dems, but not all, have condemned the intervention in Iran. This is to be expected as the current Dem party has swung so far to the left that dictators, also known as communists, are a preference of theirs, not a free people. At the same time, a shout out to Democrat Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania for supporting the cause of freedom. The critics have had the nerve to say that Iran was just about to reach a deal when Trump initiated this attack. That's just so preposterous. These are terrorists. You cannot negotiate with a 2-year-old, and you cannot negotiate with terrorists. The Iranians have breached every single deal they've ever made. Further, how can any country negotiate with leaders that slaughter tens of thousands of their own citizens? Trump's record-long State of the Union speech. I really do feel that Trump's first term would have gone better if he'd let me run his social media and write his speeches. Sadly, he recreates the same issues in his second term with talking too long, exaggerating his accomplishments and promises for the future. Management 101, under-promise and over-deliver is the right formula. Trump's accomplishments for sure, in addition to the destruction of the murderous Iranian regime, which happened after his speech, there's a fair list. American borders are under control, as they should be. Many illegals have either been arrested or left the country on their own. Many of the criminals have been arrested, but for lack of cooperation by the handful of leftist-run states, the job would be even more impressive. Inflation's not at 2%, but it's reasonable. The job market is definitely not a high point for Trump, but much of that is due to AI incursion, not due to his policies. He has changed his focus to lowering prices, but that's an uphill struggle after the Biden-Harris failures. Trump has reversed many of the ridiculous policies of the previous administration. My favorite was removing the car auto stop from late model cars. This is a ridiculous feature since motors use a real blast of fuel to start from a stop. Yes, it's more efficient to run at low idle than to start again from a full stop. Trump saluted the U.S. hockey team and a number of other Americans. Sadly, in proving how removed they are from the American people, Dems sat when they should have stood for some of Trump's acknowledgments. So the Dems stand for illegals who murder Americans, but not the families of the murdered Americans. Think about that. The failure of the Dems included 30 who did not attend, and of course there were the squalids who were wearing pins with four-letter words on them and jeered during the speech. And of course, the idiot congressman from the Houston area who was thrown out of the speech for disorderly conduct for the second year in a row. Given Texas redistricting, I hope he loses his seat in Congress this November. Hint, he looks like a homeless person who was dumped into a suit and sent out in public. AI is here to stay. How will we adjust? The good news, it looks like AI can do some really cool stuff and might make many industries more efficient. Bad news is that many jobs will be done by AI or enable much smaller workforces, and that means many will need to look for training and new work opportunities. I'm not going to run through the list, but many companies have announced layoffs in the thousands as they adjust for the world of AI systems. The national commitment is to use AI more effectively and become more advanced. The goal is that America and the civilized world will outpace the CCP. A growing problem is that AI uses more computing power, which means more power for those computers. Some of the rapidly expanding data centers use as much power as small cities. Local governments are starting to get concerned. Some of the big operations have already committed to opening their own power stations for their data centers. That would be a really positive step. This is combined with the reindustrialization that Trump has been promising. Everything takes power, folks. Bigger than Watergate. The scandals that have recently come to light that originated with the Obama and Biden administrations have revealed a total lack of commitment to the rule of law. Last fall, it came out that GOP senators had their constitutionally guaranteed privacy rights invaded by Jack Smith's bogus investigation of Trump and his allies due to the protests on January 6th at the Capitol. Wiretapping can get a private citizen thrown in federal prison. Their use requires a judicial authorization, but suppose the subpoenas were requested by a far too politically polluted Justice Department. Now there are judges involved as well. What judge signs a wiretapping authorization that instructs the party's mobile phone carrier and banks that they cannot tell the targets? Americans have a right to go to court to protest the investigations. That is, if they know about them, of course. The latest in this unraveling scandal is the seizing cell phone records of Susie Wiles, now Trump's chief of staff, and Kash Patel, who of all things is now the head of the FBI. When both were private citizens, in turn, Patel just fired 10 agents who were allegedly involved in the scandal and its cover-up. We'll see how that goes. They've already started protesting the layoffs. In Wiles' case, the allegations include that a call of hers with her attorney was recorded secretly by the FBI. The attorney, still unidentified, claims that he did not ever agree to violate his ethical obligations to his client. The FBI somehow claims that he agreed to it. As an attorney for over 4 decades, the whole matter needs a major spotlight on it until this is fully resolved. I'm waiting. I recall the Watergate scandal vividly. Why is the slopstream media soft-pedaling this one when they went crazy on Nixon and the couple fools around him? Based on what I know so far, this is a dramatically bigger scandal involving more people over a much longer time period. I promise that Saving America will continue to cover this story as often as we can get updates until there is a final resolution. And yes, folks, I want to see some people in jail. A true hero was honored last week. During the State of the Union, Trump honored Coast Guard rescue swimmer Scott Ruskin. He did something that is beyond human. During the tragic flooding by the Guadalupe River in the Texas Hill Country that killed 130, Ruskin is credited with rescuing 165 persons, including many of the campers from Camp Mystic. During Trump's speech, 11-year-old Miley Kate McClyman, one of the campers that he rescued, appeared with Ruskin as he was awarded the Legion of Merit, one of the highest honors a civilian can be awarded. Even more amazing, this was his first mission as a rescue swimmer. He used to be an accountant, by the way. Speaking as the grandparent of a young girl about the same age as Millie, that deepens my appreciation for this true hero. At the same time, I want to underscore that the 4th of July disaster is evidence of the failure of the infrastructure in this country. Finger pointing won't fix this problem. We Americans pay a fortune in taxes. It is time to run the government at all levels for the people and to spend money efficiently and with purpose. No country as developed as the United States should ever experience the loss of life such as happened on that 4th of July. The feds announced more arrests in the church attack. Initially, only 3 or 4 people were identified as leaders of the attack on a church in Minnesota were arrested. That includes former CNN frontman Don Lemon. Now the Justice Department has announced another 30 persons were charged. I'm glad to see this as this is America. We do not allow violent protesters to attract private citizens who happen to be attending church, in many cases with their children. Unfortunately, due to their location, I doubt they can be imprisoned in the rancid jail in Washington, D.C. that unfairly held the J6 protesters for as long as 4 years. Who's zooming who? So the story is that the FTC started investigating NewsGuard last May, that's Federal Trade Commission, folks, based on allegations that it is tougher on conservative news than liberal news sources. This could be viewed as a form of censorship. That really does not bother me, since I assume all sites that claim to be providing credibility reports are biased. So I probably would not have even initiated the FTC investigation. In turn, NewsGuard has filed suit in federal court to stop the FTC investigation, claiming that the government action constitutes a form of censorship. However, what does concern me is that for some reason, federal tax dollars were going to NewsGuard in the past. Federal tax dollars. Congress opened an investigation into this use of funds in 2024. Given my position, I would not see any use of taxpayer money for such operations. Let the public decide for themselves. No need to be involved, and surely no need to give them tax dollars. One of my favorite stories ever. Chocolate is good for you. Okay, I admit it. I grew up loving candy, especially chocolate candy, and I still love it. My only condition is that about a decade ago, I transitioned to dark chocolate only. Dietitians and researchers are now saying that small quantities of dark chocolate is good for you. The latest research says it has to be the really dark stuff with 70% cacao or higher. Sadly, for many, that tastes bitter and they will move to milk chocolate or a mixture of dark and other stuff. Milk chocolate has lots of other stuff that usually is not good for you. Why is dark chocolate good for you? 1, cacao contains antioxidants. Tell that to your dieting friends. Could help you feel better. Hey, I knew that without a dietitian telling me that. May reduce stress. This is beyond my distant memory of high school chemistry, but there are cool chemicals in chocolate like flavonoids, which could help the consumer to feel less stressed. Bad news. Hey, it has calories. I can spend a few minutes more at the gym if I can keep scarfing down my beloved dark chocolate. This is Dr. David D. Schein. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.